The United States is home to more than 300 million people, at least 1.7 million of whom are of Arab descent. With the 2012 presidential election approaching, the campaign season is well on its way. Although Arab Americans constitute a minority, they are growing communities across the country, including key swing states. Mohammed Rawda and Dima Al-Kakan are both Arab Americans who have lived in the US and the Middle East. They say that living in the Middle East enabled them to have a different outlook on American politics.
I grew up, with the same kind of Arab mentality that I think a lot of families in the Arab world grow up with. So there certainly are a lot of crossovers in my way of thinking and in an Arab way of thinking, but certainly being in the US, you're exposed to a lot more too, and so you gain a second aspect. So it's really like being able to fit into two skins whenever you need to.
When I was younger living in Saudi, I felt more American, because I was surrounded by Americans, and even as an Arab in Saudi, you're treated as a foreigner. So I identified a lot more with the American aspect because that's what I was surrounded by. And then coming here, which was a very smooth transition, but I started to see myself a little bit differently. I was like, oh, well, I'm totally Arab.
A poll conducted in 2007 by the Arab American Institute states that 39% of Arab Americans are Democrats, 26% identify as Republicans, and 28% are independents. But is this subgroup's political choices really all that different from the rest of the population? Republican political consultant Randa Fahmy Hudom says that the Arab American community has not been easy to mobilize.
This is a community which, by its nature, are very fragmented. Why? Because Arab Americans is a very catch-all phrase. It's like saying U.S. citizens that come from many different states around the U.S. and are many different religions. Same thing within the Arab American community. You have a variety of people who come from who trace their ancestry to a variety of countries in the Arab world. They may be Arabic speaking, but they're different countries with different interests. There's also, majority of Arab Americans in the United States are actually Christian. People don't realize that, but they are.
Some organizations, such as the AAI, try to mobilize the Arab American community through Get Out the Vote events, making the Arab American community more aware about getting politically involved.
Our goal for almost 3 decades now is to increase the vote, to make Arab Americans feel that American politics is the key to their gaining power. We complain all the time that the other side wins and we lose because the other side plays. And if we don't play, then we don't win. And if we don't win, then our issues that we care about don't get responded to.
To gain the Arab American vote, candidates focus on both domestic and foreign affairs, both equally important according to Fahmy Hudom.
There are certain issues, both domestic and international, that I can say the community cares about. For instance, on domestic issues, certainly civil rights is a big issue. After 9/11, there have been heightened security measures that have been taken, both legally by the U.S. government and others, that would affect Arab Americans. Obviously, there increased scrutiny at airports through security measures, through security clearance processes for hiring, jobs, and whatnot. On the international side of things, it depends on where they hail from. So somebody like myself, whose father came from Egypt, I'm extraordinarily interested in the political situation in Egypt, but throughout the region as well, and the effect that the political situation in Egypt is going to have on the rest of the region. So what you find is where their ancestors hailed from is where they hold the most interest.
As a first-generation Arab American, Mohammed Rawda said he feels like his voting patterns are directly tied to his cultural heritage.
And I think that our choices as Arabs are certainly affected by who we are as roots. I mean, the largest international crisis in the world is probably in the Middle East. So there's no doubt, and I think any Arab is kidding themselves if they can say that their allegiance is not affected because of who they are and what they believe. But it's also important to make a distinction that you cannot let those feelings dictate your entire vote. You do have a responsibility to the country of your citizenship, whether it's Arab or American or both.
Dima Al-Kakan moved to the United States at the age of 15. She says that members of her family don't always see eye to eye on certain issues when it comes to politics.
For global international issues and U.S. foreign relations, there is a certain consensus when it comes to the policies in our family. Like, we see things the same when it comes to international issues and U.S. and foreign relations. But when it comes to domestic issues, there's definitely a difference, and that's when in a sense, like, you see the political divides within our family.
Young Americans, including Arabs, are known to be very outspoken politically, but according to Rani Khanafsa, a student at Georgetown University, they can do more.
The protest, I guess, they get more younger kids, I guess more college students in the protests, but they don't voice their opinion. That's all they do is protest, they don't vote.
They need to get involved in their local elections. It's not just important to go cast your vote for President Obama because you think he's nice. It's important to go in your local elections. Everything changes on the local level before it changes on the federal level.
Although Rawda is very involved in politics, he doesn't believe enough young Arabs are engaged.
It's a question of how much do you think you can make a change? You as one individual. And I think growing up in Lebanon, everyone's accustomed to saying nothing's going to change. And in Egypt, everybody was accustomed to growing up saying nothing's going to change. And you just never know when one day everyone's going to be in Tahrir Square chanting for the downing of the regime, and then all of a sudden you're interested when you should have been interested a long time ago.
While Arab Americans have many concerns they want addressed, their involvement in the electoral process is crucial, especially when it comes to casting their votes.
I've seen the interest within this particular community grow leaps and bounds over the past 20 years, certainly from being a lackadaisical sort of watcher of campaigns to being extraordinarily involved. And I think that's a result of the fact that they have much to lose if they don't get involved, and a ton to gain when they do get involved.
For Maryam Saeed and Farida Zahran, this is Ghana Al-Akir reporting from Washington, D.C.